Yo, welcome in everybody. My name is Sweet Phil, and today I gotta show you the build for my Fireballer Sorceress right here. Now, it has a ton of uniques on it, but you don't need all of these uniques right here. You can actually get away without having a lot of them and throwing on different aspects to help you out. Resource generation in some way is going to be super important. Later game now, I don't need it because of a lot of the other things that I ended up getting, but early on, different types of aspects on your items that do anything like give you resource generation when you use a cooldown, or generate resource when you have a crowd control enemy, stuff like that. That's going to help you out a ton early on. But I'm just going to go over the gear first all right here. Exactly what I'm using. It's not all perfectly min-maxed, but it is all pretty dang awesome. So take a look at the helm first. We just have this one. This is where you don't have unique. It's just taking direct damage, resets a cooldown is the aspect. Really, really great. The stuff on here, this is where I need the most upgrade. Really, a lot of the stuff on here doesn't help me out a bunch. Really, total armor is about one of the only thing. Lucky hit while you have a barrier. That does help out as well because you actually have barrier quite a bit. But I don't even use a basic skill. So that's not exactly what we're looking on here, but the aspect is kind of what you're looking for. I decided to go with topazes in all the armor, just in case I get crowd controlled, that could kind of save my life. Now on the armor here, we've got the Raiment of the Infinite. Now, after using teleport, it pulls the enemies closer. Bam. Kind of like telestomping in D2, and then it sucks them in, and then boom, you can blow them up. It's got intelligence on there, close enemies, glass cannon passives, once again with the topazes. Now on the gloves, I just got these, so even without these gloves, you do absolutely nuke everything. So the gloves are the illuminator that causes the fireball to bounce, if you ever seen that. So it just explodes, 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 and it goes right through everything, just exploding everything. You got fireball ranks, and this actually lucky hit. This actually saves me so many different places where I can put other aspects. Your lucky hit happens all the time. This seems to happen all the time anyways, so it's constantly restoring your energy. So even though I have no generator, I have no basic skill, I don't really run out of mana. I never run out of mana when I'm fighting regular little monsters, but against bosses, sometimes you can get low. So that's something you're going to have to look into. Maybe you have a different one piece of gear you put on when you fight bosses and one that you don't, because you can gain like 25 mana or a resource every time you use a cooldown, or maybe it's even like 40 on one aspect that I no longer use generally, but that way you can keep your resource up. All the other stuff on here is really great as well. Put those back on, take a look at these right here. Tybalt's Will. So we got 24% increased damage, 14 resource damage directed close enemies, but yeah, while you deal 36% increased damage while unstoppable and for 4 seconds after, and when you become unstoppable, you gain 50 primary resource. Now, both Flame Shield and teleport make you unstoppable for a short period of time, so that regenerates every time you use one of those. And also your defensive skills are constantly resetting, which I'll go over here in a little bit. So you can constantly be spamming those, you know, going through your rotation of skills, regenerating resource, and early on, you can't even get an aspect that makes ice armor give you unstoppable, which then would so as soon as you get these, I mean, you really run out of a lot of resource problem there. Now down in the boots, I go here with Asu's Heirloom. Now I just love that 75% movement speed for 3 seconds when after you evade. I use it all the time. I think there's only a 4-second cooldown on evade anyway, so you're almost running as fast as you can literally all the time. A critical strike chance increases to 21% of your movement speed, which ends up being a ton. And you got mana cost reduction, critical strike, movement speed, and after you kill these, I just can't get away from these boots. There is another unique pair that I got that when you evade through monsters, it has an effect that's supposed to be awesome, but I could not get away from these boots. I love the movement speed. Now on the staff right here, this is what I found early on, and it really, I went, I really want to go ahead and rock out this particular character. So this is the Staff of Endless Rage. Fire damage, core skills, damage close, inner flame, passive, unfortunately only one. That's real rough right there, but this every third cast launches 2 additional fireballs, so 3 of them, and deals 40% increased damage. It's just crazy. 1, 2, and then that third blast, you can just nuke even bosses, chopping a huge chunk off of them with that. It is crazy. So I went ahead and plugged the sapphires into this. Critical strike damage against crowd control enemies. Now you can't crowd control people with your Frost Nova that I have on, and there's a few other ways that you do end up crowd controlling stuff. So it will increase damage most of the time. Everything nukes instantly, so you don't even get a chance to really use that. This is mainly for when you fight the bosses and stuff. You can crowd control them, and then you will deal extra damage to them. Now up here on the amulet, this is where the uniques kind of end, I suppose. And we got some aspects to help you out. This one, you gain this increased armor, stacking up to 99, so that's a perfect roll on that particular aspect. On this up here, movement speed, total armor, mana cost, cooldown reduction. Really looking at mana cost reduction on a lot of your gear to get that kind of stuff. Cooldown reduction to get that, so you can constantly be using these defensive skills, constantly replenishing your mana, and then obviously getting the defensive abilities to use. And this armor is absolutely amazing. This is almost mandatory on this build to have somewhere. I heard it's used on a lot of builds, but Sorceress can be real squishy. Get this up here. So 100% extra armor, essentially. I'm going with diamonds over here to cap all my resistances, so I might not even need all diamonds over here, but this is what I decided to stick with. Haven't really tried to min-max that anymore. Right here on this ring, this is where I ended up getting the Edge Masters. I had it on the gloves before, but then I found these bouncy gloves, and so I decided I still wanted the Edge Masters. Lucky hit, max life, maximum mana, resource regeneration, great stuff right there. And like I said, with the Edge Masters, another diamond. And on this last final ring, here we got critical strike chance, and we got resource generation. Core skills cast above 100 give you 38% increased critical strike chance. That's most of the casts you do, especially when you're going after the packs, whether in the Hell Tides or whether you're in the Blue Tides, the Blood Harvest, I guess is what it's called. You're always above 100 mana because you're just blasting everything so simply. Sometimes on bosses it does dip below that, semi-frequently I suppose, but at least half the time it's above 100 mana, because you actually have like 160 or something when you're this late in the game. So that's looking at the gear. Let's hop and take a look at the Vampiric powers right here. And this is what I decided to min-max and settle on right here. Just kind of more recently swapped it around. For the next one here, Undying. And you'd think your survivability would be fine, but this thing is absolutely crazy. Casting a skill heals you for 3% of your life. Double this if you're below 50% life. I almost think this is glitch because it doesn't look like this is how it reacts. I could be completely wrong, but it almost looks like every time a skill you cast hits an enemy or does damage or something like that, because sometimes I'll cast one fireball and when it's bouncing along, it'll like look like it's gaining life, or maybe when you kill a monster or something, you gain life. I'm not sure, but it doesn't appear that it actually reacts that way. But either way, when you're doing any of those things where wave after wave after wave of monsters coming, this will keep you alive like almost perpetually. It really is great for survivability against any massive hordes of monsters. So I would definitely recommend using this one. Your ultimate gains 20% cooldown reduction. I am trying to actually shift out of using the ultimate. I think I can almost keep my energy up all the time. Not quite yet. And while you have this ultimate up, you actually Infernos up, your fire skills, pyromancy skills have no mana cost. So that is just perpetual mana. It's good to kind of have during the bosses because you do have a little bit of an issue here and there. But I'm trying to work out how I'm going to get rid of it yet. Haven't quite got there. Next one we have over here is Hemomancy? You let me know down in the comments how you pronounce that one. Probably pretty funny the way I'm pronouncing it. So your attacks deal 80% of your max life as physical damage. This happens all the time. I don't even think it's attacks. I think it's bugged. When you open chests, it zaps everything around you. When you use your dash, it zaps everything around you with that damage. So it's either bugged or that's maybe just worded incorrectly. It's not even when you just attack. Anytime you do anything, it just zaps and everything and blows it up, which is kind of interesting. Next up over here, we have the Sanguine Brace, I believe. So when you kill an enemy, you fortify for your life. That's good right off the bat. But also when you're fortified, look just below that, you have an increased critical strike chance. Love getting more damage there. For the last one here, you gain damage reduction for 2 seconds of whatever life you have missing. So if there is a reason that you are losing life and you're ever having an issue, you're actually gaining damage reduction at the same time. So it kind of, as you get lower, it gives you, more survivability. So that can help you out with that. Let's go ahead and take a look at the skill tree now. And this is, I'm going to try to go as quick as I can because there's a lot of stuff going on here. You see up here with these generators, I actually have one. You have to have 2 points to even get down to your core skill. So I put one into Firebolt and one into Frostbolt. You don't use any. But in my enchantment slot, I use Firebolt right here because it makes things burn. And then when you get into the Paragon board and a lot of other things, you just deal damage against things that are burning or damage reduction from monsters that are burning. So that's why I have this up all the time. So anything that you don't blast instantly, you're getting damage reduction and more damage to them because they are burning. And then sometimes when I go against bosses, I put on Frostbolt because it chills every time any attack hits something. And that will stagger them faster. Really, I leave it on Firebolt almost all the time, but I just put it over here because I wasn't using the enhanced firebolt anyways, and then I could just have that option. Now coming down here to your main skill, obviously we're on fireball. Max that out. This is attack that just blasts everything. We come up to enhanced fireball, increases the radius based upon the distance traveled, and come over here. I decided to go with destructive fireball. I can understand over here why we'd want to have greater fireball. Fireball deals 10% of the burning damage. Everything blasts so much. I'd rather just have the initial attack damage, but early on I was rocking this, I'm going to be perfectly honest. So if you want to go either one, it's completely up to you. Now for passives, capped out devastation, increase your maximum mana, love it. And elemental dominance, your core skills, your core skills deal 9% increased damage when cast above 50 mana, which is essentially all the time, essentially. Not literally, but essentially. Now flame shield over here, I just got 1 point into it. Early on, I would not blame you for coming up to enhanced flame shield and then coming over to shimmering flame shield, where you'll get 50% life every time you use it. That saved my life on more than one occasion early on, but now that my character is more powerful later on and there's other ways of regenerating life and this and that, I decided to suck those points out and put them into some passives to help me out. Now teleport, mandatory, gotta have it right just for moving around, and for tele stomping, obviously. The cooldown reduces when you hit stuff, so tele stomping really does help you out there, reduce that cooldown when you hit stuff. Teleporting, you gain 30% damage reduction for 3 seconds, so that's definitely what you're going to want to go ahead and do over on that side with this build for sure. Now right here, glass cannon, cap that out at 3, and on another passive, elemental attunement, critical strikes, 15% chance to reset a cooldown. So this is one way you're resetting a cooldown, and there is actually other aspects that you can reset even more cooldowns, which I did have that one up on the helmet, right? Yeah. Basic skills have 5% chance to, or no, taking damage has a 5% chance to reset a cooldown. So just right there, we have so many different ways for these cooldowns. They're just resetting, not literally all the time, but you know what I mean? They're resetting all the time. Now we're come down, we do use ice armor. It's just another safety skill. We love using our defensive. They're constantly resetting. We're constantly casting them. And not to mention early on, anytime you use a cooldown, there is an aspect that gives you resource 15 to 25, I believe, every time you use a cooldown, or maybe that's even the one that goes up to 40. We can take a look at it in a minute, but yeah, so that's another cooldown and safety, so it's regenerating your mana later. And also I go ahead and put one into this so your mana regenerates 25% faster while that ice shield is up. I wouldn't blame you if you came down to one of these other ones, so damage against vulnerable enemies contributes more to the barrier, some early on, but later on I feel like you don't really need it. Now coming down to conjuration, we don't use any of these, but we got the passives here. We cap them out with precision magic, 50% more lucky hit. Love it, love it. This is one that's probably the very last one I would do. It's a safety skill, gain 9% damage reduction against elites for each second that you haven't taken damage, up to 40. It is nice to have, but this is the last one I max out, I will be honest, so take that in consideration. Every time you spend 100 mana, you gain 21% damage reduction for 5 seconds. I mean, that's almost all the time, am I right? Because you're just blasting with the fireballs. Now down here on the masteries, we're also not using any of these ones. But once again, for the passives, Inner Flame, your pyromancy, I just say fire skills. I hate how they're called pyromancy. Your fire skills deal 12% increased damage while you're healthy. So, you know, there you go. And 20% increased critical strike damage against burning enemies. That's important. Everything's always burning because we have the firebolt in the enchantment. So that's one way that we take advantage of that burning all the time. Now down here under your ultimates, I did say, and yeah, I am using Inferno, but I'm almost trying to drift away from it, and perhaps, not sure exactly, maybe swap some stuff around. The ultimate, pretty much all I do, it does do damage and kill stuff, I suppose, but the cooldown's very long, but the, when active, your fire skills deal no, or have no mana cost, excuse me. So that's pretty much just blast, blast, blast. So while you're not using any mana, but you're blasting away, also your mana regenerates a ton. So that's pretty much what I use it for. When I do accidentally run out of mana at some point, I just cast that and start blasting, and then my mana comes all the way back up, and then you have time for your cooldowns to reset on other things as well. Now for the passives, Fiery Surge, killing burning enemies, increases your mana regeneration by 45%. Everything's always burning. Everything you touch burns and then blows up and dies. You always have 45% faster mana regeneration for 3 seconds perpetually, essentially. So you do increase damage to burning enemies for each second that they remain burning. So there's even more damage against burning stuff. And even though this one's cut off a little bit, I can just read it to you. Every 1 second that you heal for 0.9 of your maximum life for each nearby burning enemy. So there's another way things are burning. Your telestomping stuff, they are burning. you can replenish life. I'd understand if you don't want to use this one, maybe you can shift points around to another place. At the moment, though, I didn't really come up with a better place to go ahead and put those. Down on here, Asu's ferocity or fire critical strike damage increased by 25% against monsters above 50 life, and your critical strike chance increases by 5% for them below. So that's the one I went with there. Over on the skills for the key passive. Now the Paragon board, this one I really didn't, there weren't a ton of glyphs that helped you out a ton. I got 5 of them on here. If you want to go ahead and min-max the board any way you want to, feel free, or you can go ahead and copy exactly the way I got it. So down on the first one, obviously come up the right side, non-physical damage, and down here we stuck Tactician in. So 95% bonus to all the rare nodes in here, and you can see the green right there. We've got more non-physical damage, all res, intelligence, and we obviously reached our thing. So 10% increased damage for 4 seconds after casting a defensive skill. That's essentially all the time. You're constantly using those defensive skills, so we got that one right there. Actually came up and got both of these rare nodes, so they're getting boosted up by that. And we get more all res here, some intelligence, more not 40% non-physical damage. Absolutely crazy on that one. So I think that's a great choice for there. And then for the next board, we come up and we use the Searing Heat one, and we did come all the way over to get that while also getting the glyph socket over here. But then we actually came up a little bit further to get even more fire damage. Fire damage there, fire damage, most of the magic nodes anyways. Damage over time, not as important there, but we also got the rare node in the middle, more fire damage. So I did go for a lot of rare nodes on this instead of trying to get more boards and more glyphs. I felt like it was helping me out more. Down here we put Pyromaniac. You can see the fire damage and fire res we get from that. Every pyromancy skill cast and every second you channel increases your fire damage by 2% up to 10. So plug that in there. Get fire damage and fire resistance on this particular node. Might as well grab it while we're on our way over. Next up, we come over and we've got the enchantment mastery one. So your enchantments are 20% stronger. So we went ahead and used that one. We did come over to the glyph and get destruction. Every 5 dexterity purchase within this range, you get 15% increased critical strike damage. 87%, sorry, that was off the screen a little bit, but 87% increased critical strike damage. Now I know there's a cap on it. It's all good. It's going to be capped out the way that they have it in this, but that's just easy way to cap your critical strike damage by having that over here. It is absolutely crazy. It really is crazy. So decided just to get these rare nodes right here real quick. And these are some points down here. This is at the very bottom. This actually gives us a little more critical strike damage and gets us over that 25 dexterity. That's why it looks a little funky, like why did he come down here? But just wanted to get the dexterity to get it up over the amount. Obviously grab this non-physical damage, and then we came up to the next board, and here we actually have Elemental Summoner. This one kind of a later on, and this is when I kind of realized there weren't any other of these legendary nodes I really wanted. So we went ahead and just grabbed this board so I could come over here and get non-physical damage right there. Come up and put in our Unleashed, 114% to all magic nodes in their area, and you see there's just a little bonus right there, but really I wanted to have, after spending 50 mana, you deal increased damage and gain increased mana regeneration for 3 seconds. Another way, getting more mana regeneration and more mana, dealing more damage, excuse me, for not really a whole lot. We caught a couple rare nodes on the way up. You see the way the board's oriented, going ahead and getting just intelligence along the line. Might as well go through there, and some all res and stuff like that. I did come over here. This is semi-important. You can orient this board a different way if you want to get to this faster. I might have done this now, actually, if I went back and respec'd it, but maximum mana here, max mana, max mana, max mana. Now, I might wait to get this one and use the other regenerations anyways, but probably flipping this around so you can get the mana first before getting all the way up to here might be a better option. And then for the last board here, went ahead and stuck on the Burning Instinct, so I could go ahead and get over to some of this stuff over here. Damage reduction from burning enemies. Everything's always burning, right? Then we went ahead and stuck in Flame Feeder. So for every 5 dexterity in this range, you're dealing 7% increased damage to burning enemies. So if there's 30% more damage to burning enemies, and you increase 10% direct damage to burning enemies, obviously on that glyph right there. Decided to hop over here. This is the point where you're like, well, where am I going to go with this stuff, right? So damage to two burning enemies right there. And for the last point, I got just barely up to Kindling here, 10% more damage to burning enemies and 16% damage to elites. Perhaps if I wanted to go ahead, there's a spot or two where I could swap some points around and save a Paragon point here and there. Maybe we can get some more burning damage here, but that's maybe a little more min-maxing for the future right there. So perhaps you'd like to see the stat screen super quick before we go. So here's what it all is at. Yeah, I am at level 100, and here's the stat, attack power and stuff like that. Resistances are capped. You can see this stuff. Take a look at the critical strike chance, and the damage is obviously plenty. Overpowering when it does happen, you get a bunch there. Vulnerable damage right there. And you can go ahead and see as you look down here, damage versus burning a bunch, max life. As we get down here, here we go, cooldown reduction, kind of important, lucky hit bonus. So between the two, you can see right there that lucky hit happens all the time. Lucky hit, mana here. So a bunch of different things, mana regeneration. If you want to go ahead and take a look at that, I'll scroll over super quick. You can pause it at any point and go ahead and take a gander at whatever you want to see right there. And at the end of here, super quickly, I did want to go over some aspects that you could go ahead and throw on to really help out your energy early on, I suppose. So let me go ahead and find some of them. Maybe perhaps this one right here. You're gaining 32 primary resource for every 25 life you're healing. Well, if you're early on, you're getting hit, you're having to use potions. You have different abilities that heal your life. So that's going to bring back your resource right there. This is one I actually used early on a little bit because it was stunning everything as soon as 5 enemies get close to you. Kind of happens a lot. Every 20 seconds, you can go ahead and rock that. And then right here, the Umbral one, you can get just the one resource regenerated from one of your codexes from farming a dungeon. But if you get a good one here, restore 4 primary resource every time you crowd control an enemy. So you can go ahead and throw that on. You can do other ways of crowd controlling stuff. I kind of took points in and out of those things because I don't need it anymore. But I did have this on for almost the entire time I was playing through the game and leveling up until I probably got like over 90 is when I stopped using it. But that is a very good option right there to get your resource to stay up. And then right up above my bald head here, we got mana regenerates 50% every time you haven't taken damage for the last 2 seconds. So that could be the time essentially running between packs. Your resource can be go ahead and stay up. So there is another great option. So unfortunately, I accidentally scrapped the ring, so I can't really show it to you right now. It's not one that I needed anymore. Every time you use a cooldown, it restores your resource. And I use the cooldowns all the time because remember, you have a 15% chance on lucky hit to reset a cooldown of a defensive skill. And on top of that, I also use this right here on my helmet. This is just an example, and it's cut off slightly, and now it's down behind my head here a little bit. But taking direct damage has a 5%, 2 to 6 chance to reset a defensive skill. So your defensive skills are resetting kind of like all the time. So getting that aspect that when you use a cooldown replenishes your resource, very key, very clutch. So yeah, hopefully this build helps you out and you use it and actually blast stuff. Don't forget to like button and subscribe up before you go if they helped you out. Peace out, fellas, and keep slaying.